Everyone, and welcome to the Dolly Sewing Room. This is Tammy here, and I am going to do a little bit of a different video. Instead of talking about dolls or crafts specifically, I'm going to talk about why I've decided to close both of my Etsy shops. So right now, as of the filming of this video, which is in early November 2020, I have two Etsy shops. One is called Kawaii Doll Shop, and as you can imagine, it has doll supplies in it. Dolly things. I originally started it when I was getting into sewing doll clothes, and I thought for some crazy reason I decided to start selling some of the dresses I was making, and I did sell some. That shop then morphed into Dolly making supplies, and actually it did okay. It really did okay. I seem to have found a little bit of traction there for a while. My other shop is called Lotus Flower Kawaii, and it is a shop I've had on and off for many years, almost since when I first started and I joined Etsy back in, I don't remember, early 2000, 2005, something like that. I don't remember for sure. And I open and close it on occasion, and I ended up opening it back up this past summer because of all the mask wearing that was going on, the mask making and mask buying, and I was actually being asked by people to make masks for them, and they wanted to pay me. And at first I was just doing it here or there, but then I thought, you know, I'll just open up, it'll just be easier if I open up my Etsy shop, because that way I can just list things, be automatic. I don't have to do the email back and forth a bunch of times. And what's nice about Etsy is it'll set up the once you weigh and measure everything, you can have the the postage figured out for you, right? So it just makes things, it just streamlined things, okay? And then I was like, well, since I have masks in there, why don't I put some of my yoga jewelry and my I had headbands and things like that. And actually right now I still have about a dozen items in that shop, and I still have a few items in the Kawaii Doll Shop as well, and I have marked them way down, like crazy down. I just want to clear things out. I took things out of the shops that I personally wanted to keep, but everything else, like the Lotus Flower Kawaii shop, I have down 40% of everything. And I've been selling things pretty quickly, so I expect to clear that out fairly soon. And the Kawaii Doll Shop, I will be adding a few more things. I'm just going to clear out inventory, and like I said, same kind of thing. I will mark things way down just because I want to clear things out. There's no reason for me to hold on to some of it. I will pull things out that I want to keep for myself, but otherwise everything's going, right? So I thought I'd go ahead and do this video because I do get asked sometimes, mostly by students. I'm a college teacher, and I also run and sponsor a craft club through the college, and some of them know that I have, you know, an Etsy shop, or they actually talk about the club having an Etsy shop. I'm like, I don't want to go there. So I have talked to them, just explain the basics and that kind of thing. And ironically, now I'm closing my shops. But there are 3 reasons why I'm closing my shop. And some of it is personal just to me because of my limitations. But also I think it might be something worthwhile for anybody who maybe either is thinking about doing and opening an Etsy shop on selling their handmade items themselves, or who have a shop now and are not doing so well, or beating themselves up about not doing as well as they had hoped and that kind of thing. So my number 1 reason, and you probably could guess it, is time, or lack thereof. I have a very demanding and very fulfilling job as an English teacher at a state college, and I really like my job, and that comes first. And like I said, during the summer I opened up the one shop because, you know, I wasn't working as much because we have a summer break, and I was teaching online, of course, because of the pandemic and everything. You know, that happened. Not that we don't, if you're teaching online, let me just say, you're not teaching you're not teaching fewer hours, okay? It doesn't take less time. It's actually kind of the opposite. But anyway, that's a whole nother rant. But really the time, and it takes a lot of time. If you have an Etsy shop, you have to think about everything that's involved. Besides the fact that you make something to sell most of the time, like these dresses, for example, they take a lot of time to make. So you have to make the item. Even if you're not making the item and you're reselling, say you're like a lot of the companies on there that do really well sell supplies, but they have to purchase those supplies. And even if you just purchase them, you have to research and find out where to get them at. So for example, a lot of the supplies I was selling in my doll shop, I purchased from other vendors, but it took me a long time to research and find really good vendors that had quality products that I felt comfortable selling. And then I had to buy them, and then I had to wait for them. And you know, they don't just come like that, especially if you're purchasing from China, which obviously some of the stuff I was reselling, I was buying from China. Then once you get whatever the item is, whether you buy it to resell or, and it's a supply, because Etsy doesn't allow you just resell items that you haven't made unless it's a supply, or supposedly that's supposed to be the rule anyway. But once you have whatever it is that you're going to sell, either made or purchased, then you have to write the listings up, and that takes some time. You have to do, there's some strategy involved with it. Then you have to photograph, and photography for me is that's a struggle. When you take photographs, those photographs have to be very clear, and that takes quite a bit of time. You need to edit them sometimes because they have to be sized a certain way for Etsy. You have to, sometimes you may have to tweak the lighting a little bit. You don't want to make them look different than what they are, but it does take some editing to really produce a decent photograph for Etsy. And I'm not even that great. I mean, like, don't go over to my web shop and go, oh my God, her photographs look like crap, and here she's telling us they should be good. Okay, I did the best I could do, okay, with my limited capabilities and time. And promoting, you have to take time to promote your shop, and you use social media for that. And that's one thing that's kind of a downer for me. I feel like sometimes I would be constantly bugging people, buy this, buy that, buy this. And really, I mean, I just want to, you know, be out there and socialize with people on social media. I don't really want to focus just on the business part of things. So the time it takes to do all of that as far as running your shop is something I just don't have. If I were to do that, I've realized it would mean sacrificing other things that I do in my spare time. Like I said, I have to spend a certain amount of time at my job. And even though my job isn't a 9-to-5 job, you know, often I have to spend time on the weekends to grade papers or work on assignments or side projects for the school, just because it has to be done that way. I mean, if I have students turn in papers on a Friday, then I feel compelled to grade those papers as soon as possible. So that would mean grading on Saturdays and Sundays, and that's just the way I work. Okay, I'm not saying all teachers should do that. I'm just saying for me. So the number 2 reason I decided to close both my Etsy shops at the end of 2020, it has to do with the whole idea of the questionable, profitable business model that encompasses Etsy. And I don't mean this in a bad way. I know there are a lot of people who've done really well through Etsy, who have actually started there and then moved on to create their own websites. And I mean, I can name some of them for you, but I mean, you know, I think like Main Design is one I'm thinking of right now. Anyway, so it can be done. Again, if you have the time and energy to do it, I think it's still possible to do it. But it kind of reminded me, as I started getting back into this again over the summer, it reminded me of when many years ago I was selling my handmade jewelry, and I had a little side business, and I was teaching part-time. I wasn't teaching full-time. I was an adjunct mostly, and I did other types of jobs, a lot of freelance writing. And so in the side I did, I had my little business and my jewelry business, and I would do these art shows, right? So every weekend practically I had an art show, and it was a lot of work. And then sometimes I would have full-time jobs. Like I would have, even if I had multiple part-time jobs, it was ending at 40 hours a week, or a few times I had real full-time jobs. And so I would work 40 hours plus a week, and then the weekends I would be out at the art show. So it was a lot of work to sell a bracelet or two. And even when I did well at those shows, it never measured up to the time spent preparing, making, creating, sitting out there selling your work. It just never was profitable. And the practical side of me has to finally say, hey, you know, that's just not, it's not worth it for me to spend that amount of time. In fact, back then, what I ended up doing after I spent about 8 years on the art show circuit, I started to realize I was making more money by writing an article about how to make a bracelet than I was selling the bracelet. So I could write an article for a jewelry making magazine. I'm trying to think of one. There were quite a few. Jewelry Crafts was one that it's not in print anymore, but I wrote a lot for them. And I can't remember how much I would get paid, maybe like $100 or something, $150, $100, and for writing an article, and I would have photographs. And it was just a couple page article, but I could make $150 writing how to make a bracelet, or I could spend all weekend outside sweating my guts out trying to sell a $10 bracelet. And granted, I made more than $10, but sometimes not. You know, sometimes it was a bust. So even if I made a few $100s, I was like, okay, wait a minute, I can make more writing about jewelry making than actually selling the jewelry I make. And that's what I have, again, you know, dummy me. That's what, again, I realized with the model that Etsy has right now, that really the people who I feel who are making the most money and making it worthwhile for them on Etsy are people who are selling the supplies for people like me. Like, I buy fabric on there. I do buy dolls, you know, items, shoes and dresses and things like that, and clothing. But I mean, a lot of the items I purchase tend to be supplies for crafting. So yeah. All right. So, and then that leads to reason number 3. And it's kind of a mundane one. It just has to do with taxes, but this is kind of what started making me think, because we have tax season, you know, pretty soon I'm going to have to get all my tax papers together and everything. And my husband and I, we file together, and we have somebody who does our taxes for us. And I know there's somebody out there saying, oh, you could do it yourself, you know, that would save you a lot of money and all that kind of thing. Yeah, no. Okay. We tried that. We didn't like it. I will say at the time I was writing, doing a lot of freelance writing, so I had all kinds of 1099 forms, so it was a mess. But it also made us a target I feel, for the IRS, with just targeting us, because I had all these, you know, all this freelance work. And it just comes down to having a professional do something that she is trained to do. She does a great job. She's totally worth what we pay her to do. But if I have a business and I have this little side business and I'm making peanuts, I mean, basically it's a hobby business, and I'm making just enough to kind of practically break even, if then. I'm really not, honestly, if you have to add the time and everything. But then I'm paying her to fill out a Schedule C, itemize, do all this kind of stuff. So I lose even more money, because I have to spend more time with the tax part, and even the tax itself means I have to keep track of all the paperwork, all the receipts. You know, again, the time factor comes in there, because you really have to make sure that you have all the accurate information to file your taxes, so you don't do something inadvertently wrong. You know, even if you don't mean to file your taxes wrong, they don't really care. Okay, so yeah, not enough time, questionable business model, and taxes. Those are the 3 reasons I've decided to close my Etsy shops. And just to see what happens 2021. I'm not saying I won't necessarily sell a doll here and there, you know, on some of the Facebook groups, but that's a doll out of my collection. It's not part of a business or anything. I mean, it's a doll. Usually if I'm selling a doll, it's because I want to buy a doll. Okay? So I sell a doll, take that money, buy a different doll. And I know that's not everybody's jam, but that's something I thought I would just share that with you. And I appreciate all of you stopping by and hanging out with me for a few minutes. If you have any questions, or if you have comments about your experience with Etsy, or even just trying to run a craft-related business, I'd love to hear them down in the comments. I'd also appreciate a thumbs up, and you know the drill, all that good stuff. And yeah, you guys have a wonderful crafting day. Bye-bye.